You guys are not going to believe me how much news has been piling up. I came on today deciding, right, I want to make a video. Let's talk about what's going on. Maybe I should cover some of the current event stuff happening in game, some of the other minor things that changed with the most recent patch. And I'm shocked to see the sheer volume of articles, videos, interviews, and things that have risen out of ArenaNet. It's not like we're in a particularly crazy period of time where Living World Season 3 is on our doorstep and loads of press is being done for it. It just all seems to have been maybe coincidence, but either way, the guys at ArenaNet seem to have been putting a lot of things out. I'll sum it up as best I can for you, and I'll start off with one of Guild Wars 2's Facebook pages, or rather I should probably say ArenaNet's Facebook pages. I'm going to rewind the clock to the days of the war in Kryta. We've obviously mentioned this a few times recently, what with the apparent new war in Kryta that seems to be brewing somehow, at least under the surface a little in the current events of Guild Wars 2 right now. Well, ArenaNet seemed to look back at what they did way back when, and it turns out that they'd actually made a page for the White Mantle on Facebook. I guess that they made a page for the Shining Blade as well on Facebook. Well, they logged on, and for the first time in about 6 years, or maybe it's 7 years, which is scary to think about because this page feels like very recent memory to me. For the first time in like 6 years, there was an update on the White Mantle's Facebook page. Just a bit of concept art and image from not the most recent wing that we've had released, but the previous one on Wing 2, that cutscene that we had. Now, even though it's nothing particularly new because it's just a still image from a cutscene we had already seen in the game, it is exciting. It's weird. It feels like we've gone back in time almost, and maybe they're rolling some big thing out. Or it was just a cool little idea someone on the community team had to put this little update out there for the White Mantle fanatics. Way back when we used to kind of split into two different teams, those who supported the Shining Blade and those who supported the White Mantle, and everyone would cast their favour in one direction or the other, even though we all knew that the White Mantle was supposed to be antagonists. Interestingly enough, Regina did, in reference to all this old stuff from 6 years ago, link in a Reddit thread a really awesome page on the Guild Wars 1 wiki that sums up every little thing that ever occurred during the cross-media campaigns for the original war in Kryta. Way back when, originally it was just a weird, hazed-out, Gaussian blurred image on their main website that slowly cleared up and cleared up and cleared up over the days, and then the different quotes started appearing, and it became this huge, big campaign with propaganda from both sides getting thrown around. If you guys want to read the details, if you want to understand how the original war in Kryta really functioned, and say maybe you haven't seen my extensive Let's Play on the topic, you can basically get it all done in 15 or 20 minutes, but just by looking at this page. So it is cool. I wonder whether we'll see more updates from the White Mantle or the Shining Blade Facebook pages, but we shall see. There was another little post as well. I'm kicking myself for not being able to find it. I did look for about half an hour before recording this video, so don't tear my head off for this. But there definitely was something ArenaNet released. I saw a few days ago where they were showing off some concept art related to the new wing, and there seemed to be some weird, subtle hints at ice. And coldness, as far as I remember. And I really regret that I can't show it to you guys exactly, but it seems to pair with perhaps some weird things we see in the wing itself as well, making me maybe think that where the story will go in the future could be to the Shiver Peaks Bloodstone, but that could have to be a story for another day. Let's move away from the raids just for a second. Like I say, a lot of stuff's going on, and I don't think it's just because this raid win came out. We've talked about it so much on the channel recently, so before we go even further with it, because there are several videos I have to show you as well, let's talk about E3. So, complete change of gears here. E3 has been going on. ArenaNet did have a presence there, a very minor one. They never went there with something really specific or huge in mind to show, but people could go up to them. They could interact with the developers a little bit. You could have a bit of a chat, and there was, I believe it's an Italian interview. This was the main thing that I've gleaned that occurred at E3. Do feel free to let me know in the comments if I've missed something. I will absolutely talk about it more on a future video, but the big thing was this interview, which you guys are now hearing on my video, and I'm only hearing it from a fan who translated it from the Italian, who themselves was a fan writing an interview after a conversation with the devs. So why do I explain all of that? Because this could be a serious case of he said, she said. Don't get too excited, take it with a slight grain of salt, but there are some pretty telling things in this interview. So, namely about Season 3. Now, it probably won't come as a surprise to you guys. In fact, before I say this right now, think to yourself, when do you believe Season 3 will come? You're probably expecting it in the next few months, somewhere around summer, hopefully before an entire year has passed since Heart of Thorns, considering Heart of Thorns was such a short story as well, right? Well, you would be right, it seems. The interview supposedly states that they're expecting to release Season 3 over the next few months, with the start of Season 3 probably before summer ends. So when summer ends, obviously, is a bit of a loose date there that they can decide exactly where that is. But that was kind of in line with where I thought things would be. But more specifically as well, there's more confirmation on this idea that they might be reining the scale of it back, or at least the release pace. So they essentially say in this interview that while Season 2 was going for like a bi-weekly release cadence, which they never really managed to get, by the way. We had like 4 updates and then a big break, and then 4 updates and then a big break, or then 2 and then a break and then 2 again and then a break. They never really did very well with it in the first place. But having learned from Season 2, in Season 3 they seem to be wanting to go with a bigger and less frequent update. So while Living World might start by the end of summer, and we might get a reasonable bulk of content to play, it's not going to be, 2 weeks, so you can play this as your priority game forevermore again. It's probably more likely that they'll try and squeeze as much replay value and content out into little updates that come every few months. You know, it could be 1 or 2 months separating each patch related to continuing the main story in the Living World. And that's going to be very different. This is, again, another new thing. We didn't see Season 1 try this, really. We didn't see Season 2 try this, really. And I'm curious how ArenaNet are going to try and temper the community's expectations where that's concerned. But yeah, there was a little bit more as well. Some of this is just sort of more contemporary comments on things we were already speculating were going to be this way. But they did talk about how Living World Season 3 is going to provide content not just for PvE, but for PvP too. Now, that might seem really weird for a couple of reasons. Why would they specify that it's bringing content to PvP and not World vs. World, first of all? Well, I would say World vs. World, I think, is really, at the moment, especially since it, in my opinion, it's kind of in a state of repair, right? And it's in a state of being very heavily and quickly iterated upon and lots of community feedback. World vs. World is kind of in its own development space altogether at the moment. But even looking back at Season 2, when we saw one of the feature packs go out, and we saw the idea of reward tracks in PvP release, the devs did say way back when that they wanted more PvP reward tracks to come out and be available for PvPers to go for, to coincide with new areas of the world releasing in Living World. And then they never really had a great chance to flex that, did they? I mean, they did put more reward tracks in, obviously, when Heart of Thorns came out, but this idea that Tyria is constantly expanding with new things available, and every time they add a new map, for example, we're going to get a new reward track in PvP. That's a cool idea and something that's probably still on the table for them. It's just that the stars haven't aligned to really flex that. Well, I think that that's what we're going to be seeing with Season 3. Maybe it's not so crazy that they're saying, oh, PvP gets updates as well as PvE, because I think what they're more talking about is reward tracks. Though, if I'm a little less pessimistic, if I'm a little more optimistic for a moment, they do seem to suggest as well in this interview that could mean more actual maps too. And I think that that's pretty obvious that PvP should continue to get more maps, but it's funny when you talk about new maps for Guild Wars 2 compared to other competitive games. Other competitive games, you know, new maps can just mean more layouts and not such divergent gameplay, but with the way that ArenaNet do things with their secondary mechanics, you can have wildly different experiences. This is why there is so much vitriol, or was so much vitriol thrown at something like Skyhammer or Raid on the Capricorn, or so much love thrown at something like the Battle of Kylo or the Forest of Niflhel. So the prospect that there are new maps coming in can be quite interesting. You know, we can even see things as divergent as Courtyard was. It's not even really the same game type whatsoever. And supposedly the interview gives a couple of specifics when regarding this. So they say they say about a kind of mechanic where you can earn more points for yourself. So perhaps a version of the old buffs used to be able to channel Monastery. They talk about modifiers for points when you get kill streaks. So it could be like a conquest game type, but if you get a huge kill streak, you get more than 5 points per stomp or per cleave down. And then something super vague, even shoot fireballs against enemies. Christ knows what that means. So I think ArenaNet are trying things. The more interesting discussion, which the interview does not touch with a 100-foot pole, which I think is a real shame, is when we're dealing with new maps, what is the focus? Is it Conquest? Is it Stronghold? I think the guys on the competitive team must have known that there's going to be a bit of a struggle within the community here now. And so far, Stronghold really hasn't taken a shine to most people. So what does that mean ArenaNet do? Do they abandon it straight away? Do they say, oh, it was an interesting idea for Heart of Thorns, but leave it? Or do they try and prop it up by focusing on new maps specifically for that game type? Would that be a mistake? I'm leaning towards that might be a mistake, but I also think it's a shame if they just ignored Stronghold Forevermore, because it does have some really nice elements in it. We'll see what you guys think. All right, that's not even it for this E3 interview. I've saved the best for last. And this is, again, about new PvE content, but rather than Living World so much, we're actually talking Fractals here. And what I'm doing here is I'm giving you guys a direct quote. So this is a fan's translation of an Italian interview, which is already hearsay of what actually happened with the devs. So here we go. This is what it says, all right? Because I don't want to add to the pile of he said, she said. A new feature will be represented by the introduction of a new Fractal. The new location will resume the concept introduced at the end of Vanilla of the release of magic following the defeat of a powerful enemy. And we want to avoid spoiler his name here. Another enemy that has access to a large amount of magic has taken control of this new dungeon, and our aim will be to discover how he was able to do it. The new release will not only introduce only this new Fractal, but many will be released on a timely basis. Alright, so what I'm getting from this is when the content starts flowing again, we can expect regular Fractals, kind of similar to how I believe World vs. World had so much wrong with it, the devs became thoroughly bottlenecked, where they tried to fix everything at once, and now they've kind of moved on from that. They're starting to see a real trickle of change in World vs. World. I think we'll see a similar thing with Fractals too, where Fractals actually start getting more consistent updates. And so a new Fractal is on the books. We have already heard outside of this interview, by the way, that ArenaNet are aiming to put out at least one Fractal this year. Before the year closes, we'll see a Fractal. And so we get some specifics here, and the story specifics are quite interesting, aren't they? Because, again, this is what I've wanted to see the franchise go down, about the release of magic and people taking that power for themselves. So what event could we be talking about? Well, I think the first thing most of us will think of is Zhaitan. And this could be quite interesting. I actually hosted a competition for some gems a few months ago where someone submitted me a story specifically about this idea that someone would go to Zhaitan's body, leaking magic, and manipulate and take that magic for themselves. This would be a very interesting and unique way, and perhaps a convenient way, for ArenaNet to readdress how awful the end of the vanilla story was. You know, Morgemoth and the Heart of Thorns arc ending so suddenly gets a lot of hate. But I think probably the worst offender is the Zhaitan ending. It's so important that we know what happened with this body, that we have that confirmation of a kill beyond just a tale in the Demon Priory ages later during a Living World update, to actually see where this magic goes, how eventually it ends up influencing Tequatl, for example. That would be a great Fractal. The context of how this Fractal gets added to the game as well is curious to me, because last time the devs chose to add some new Fractals, and specifically an entirely new one with the Thormanova reactor, they also went to great efforts to link it to contemporary stories in the world. They didn't just have it like as an update where it's, oh, a new Fractal's available from the roster, go have fun, like you would see a lot of devs do, that cuts down on the amount of time and tertiary features they need to put in to actually add this content in. What they did was they added this whole story and expanded on the plot with Dessa, and they had Ellen Keel, the character, actually quite honestly going in and discussing it. I wonder whether they'll do that again, and, you know, frame it as we log in one day, we get a mail, and Ellen Keel or someone says, hey, you should check out the Fractals, we've been doing research into the moments after Zhaitan died. And all of this could be really good for improving the quality of the vanilla storytelling. I like seeing that word vanilla in there. Or it could all just be a load of hot air because, hey, this is translations of translations of translations. We shall see! But it's pretty exciting, no? Before we go back to the raids, there is another thing I want to talk about, and that's Legendary Armour, which is sort of related to the raids. Now, because Wing 3 has released, that means that people can now complete, as I've explained in a video already, the collection for the start of the Legendary Armor. What it does is it gives you like the tier 1 precursor stuff, and then later you're going to start building that into the armor itself. I just want to be clear with you guys, there was a big forum post from Andrew McLeod, you can see it on screen right now if you want to pause the video and read the specifics, but this is the quote I really want to fixate on here. He says this: completing the Envoy Armour 1 collection will unlock the Envoy Armour 2 collection to begin the next step of the journey. And this is the armor people will now be able to wear. You may have already seen. This is armor people are already complaining about doesn't look very good and is a bit of a shame. He says, similarly to how the first collection was revealed over the course of the Forsaken Thicket releases, this collection has some items that are tied to future content, which will be revealed when that content is released. Ouch, I guess. So basically the point is this, guys. You still cannot get the full legendary armor because as soon as you complete the first collection, you go into another collection, which again has got all these locked off things because we don't have access to the content that will actually provide it. Now, that's a bit of a shame that we don't get it straight away, but I do like it for some other reasons. Essentially, what you've got is Collection 1, which is entirely about the first raid, but also dips you into the original 4 Heart of Thorns maps too while you're at it. You know, you'll go to Auric Basin to collect an item, and then you'll go back into the raid to kill a boss with that item in your inventory, and it will charge it up or do something specific, or you kill lots of Chuck Gerrans to charge, some Spirit Weave thread, or whatever. There's lots of interaction in the original 4 maps. And I like the idea now that Collection 2, again, dips you in and out of the first raid, because this armor is associated with the first raid, right? But now is dipping you into the Living World maps. And the fact that they're comfortable enough to release this collection like this and make us wait kind of gives me some confidence that we're getting a new map coming into the game pretty soon, and I think that's the way it'll work. Now we're dipping into, hopefully, the next few maps that are in the game. You know, I would hope for at least 4 with Living World, but my predictions and expectations and hope for this franchise always seems to be a little bit more exaggerated than what we eventually get, so we shall have to see. But yeah, so a bit of a shame that we can't get the full stuff. Maybe it's because work on the art and design of them isn't complete yet. And I hope they do put some real love and effort into it, because already people are concerned. The precursor armor that we can already get is probably going to look similar to the final stuff, right? That's what they went with on the weapon side of things. You build a precursor that looks like the legendary, and then the final tier just gives it all the flashy effects. So when people see that wearing the precursor tier 1 stuff on their chart, it's clipping on the tail and it has all the issues that so many other armor sets have, that must feel bad, you know? I saw somebody had a big post that gained a lot of support, suggesting that legendary armor should maybe be cultural armor again and be really specifically tailored to each race that is wearing it. And that is the kind of attention to detail and effort I'd like to see ArenaNet put into something like that. But time will tell, and my gut says that they probably won't. Alright, so I want to end this video talking about a few things that ArenaNet released officially through their main website and their YouTube channel. These are specifically 2 more videos. Now, you remember the last time we talked about this, ArenaNet had done talks on the new Raid Wing, specifically before it came out, about the art and what was the other one? The concept behind it, I think, or maybe the story behind it, was it? Well, they've done 2 more videos. 2 more. Again, some new faces that we're seeing here, or 1 new face actually specifically. But this time they're talking about audio, and they're talking about the combat. So, the audio one, as ever, is always very interesting. I think ArenaNet have a lot of pride in their audio team, their in-house ability to get a lot of these sound effects, and they just do it right then and there. And it was kind of fun to see the way they work, as always, actually developing these kind of rock sound effects. These videos are always really good because it reminds people just how much work goes into the minutiae of a single encounter. You know, every little ability this Keep Guardian's doing has to have a sound effect, which they've built in-house there. So, it's an interesting video. There's nothing too major. The other one, though, on combat, is very interesting. And I think if I was someone who hadn't actually cleared the boss they're discussing already before watching the video, I would be even more interested in it, because this is a developer talking about and giving hints and tips on actually how to clear this encounter quite concisely, quite quickly. And that's really nice to see. There were some interesting extra tidbits for those of us who have already killed the boss. I think general impressions, and it's crazy to hear myself say this, I think general impressions right now are that Wing 3 is even easier in general than the previous wings that came before it. So a lot of people have already cleared this boss. And for those of us in that position, here's what I picked at. Number 1, the devs obviously, while getting footage for this little guide or discussion, had some kind of dev command on, which meant they couldn't die, alright? Because look at this guy, face tanking incredible tails like a boss, getting shreked by them, and then these magical, incredibly high, powerful heals from across the map, whatever ally it supposedly was casting on him, topping his health off majorly. Every time it happens, guys, that is not a druid, that is not some wicked sick ArenaNet, approved healing build that nobody's caught onto yet. This is dev commands. I thought that was quite funny. And the more interesting dev command, look at that. Yeah. Come on, ArenaNet. I mean, we've seen this in menus before. What we're looking at here, guys, is a percentage number showing exactly what percent health the bosses have left. And what I find really striking about this is it's not even that intrusive on the UI. It's not like crazy bloat or extra clutter, or it doesn't ruin the aesthetic that they've presented. This is seamless. This fits really well. I would love to see this as an option for your regular player. Some of you guys watching this video right now might be scratching your head and thinking, holy crap, WP, you're telling me that the devs already have a means of showing the exact percentage of health a boss has left on him, and they're not giving that to us, the players? That would be so cool. Well, the reason they don't do it is probably tied to open world and trying not to provoke animosity between players, and I can see the niche scenarios where that ends up happening, especially as events scale. But I would also say that if this was something they could do for specific areas of the game, I think raiding groups at least deserve this. They've already shown that they're up for open and transparent information and adding features like the Special Ops DPS testing cave. So would it really be so bad if a raid squad could see the percent health of a boss left? You can tell just by watching this video how cool that would be, without having to resort to third-party stuff. But I think probably in the end, it's just a minor little thing that would take a little bit too much effort to implement. So that's why we don't have it. Bit of a shame. And yeah, that was pretty much it for that video. The other thing that I thought was quite interesting is actually the mechanic where the statues in the arena sort of come to life and break down and become spirits. That actually wasn't in the original design for the boss fight at all. It was just something that was born out of some nice art that had been delivered for the encounter. And also that this was something I speculated on with the original trailer for the wing. The room that you fight the Keep construct in is the same room, asset-wise, as the Matthias fight, as we'd originally thought. It's just they've sort of tied it up to look a little bit different, but it is actually the same arena. It just goes to show that a lot of these raid encounters, they're just kind of circular platforms, and they have to be that way so that people don't cheese stuff too comfortably with terrain, and it's magnificent the amount of different mechanics and encounters and styles you can accomplish, even though the arena itself is usually just a circular platform, as we've seen time and time and time again with most of these large raid encounters. So, pretty nice. Alright, and then last of all, beyond those two videos, there are links if you guys want to watch them in full. They are pretty interesting. There was a blog post called A Raiding Retrospective, and in this we get to hear some comments from the various members of the raid team. I think the one subtle thing most people won't appreciate about this blog post is, again, how few people they seem to be employing to work on raids. The main criticism at ArenaNet right now is that they've lost their soul, and they used to stand for creating a game that wasn't all about raiding and broke traditional MMO convention, and look at them now, all they do is raiding content. And I can absolutely see why people hold that opinion, but it is a sad opinion to have because it's based on a misconception. People don't realize that it's just the guys making these raids are really efficient, and everyone else has got their hands in a great many other pies that we haven't quite seen what they've worked on yet. It was never ArenaNet's plan to just drop all content and only work on raids. There are not 300 people making the raids. There are only a select few, and you're getting quotes from them here in this blog post. You can see how small this team is. And so they've got a variety of different interesting things. What I picked out of it was, first, a real understanding from the raiding teams that, and this is going to sound a bit weird as a quote, but bear with me, an understanding that the pain of the raid makes the pleasure of the raid. You don't see videos and streams of people finally getting their clear of bosses and cheering like they're at a goddamn football match, as loudly as they can in jubilation with their friends when they one-shot it and when there was no trouble before it and when there weren't hours of effort beforehand. And I appreciate that raiding and that idea of something being really difficult and being a huge time commitment and really stressful and horrible before you finally clear it. I appreciate that as a video gaming concept is not for everyone, but the guys on the raid team know that that's what they want their raids to give people, and there are a select few out there who really like it. And this made me very happy. It means that ArenaNet really know where the joy comes from with the raiding experiences, and they're unlikely to deviate in a really negative way in the future because they're like, oh, it's too hard, I think raids are too bogged down by people wiping, or other such ideas like that. So that was quite nice to see picked out. There was a very interesting comment that apparently Slothazor is the most or the least successfully cleared boss or encounter of all 3 wings so far. Slothazor is the hardest, is where the most failures arrive. I think that this is for the same reason I've expressed before very recently, that Slothazor is right at the start of a wing, and you get all these excited people, they see videos and you know, theories and things posted, and they hear about how awesome the raiding experience is, so they want to play the most recent wing. That's where most people are on LFG. They go in there, but Slothazor is hard. It's tuned to be very difficult, and you'll find these people who just struggle on it massively. And so having learned from that, Wing 3 is quite deliberately easing people in a little bit better with its first few encounters, just as we saw it has done, and I think that's a really, really good decision. I'm excited about the future wings doing that as well. And again, that means for you guys who watch my videos but don't try this, all the future wings and things that come out will be a bit more forgiving on the introductory encounters, and that should make them more fun. So don't write them off if you had a horrible experience on Slothazor once, or even on the start of Wing 1, I would say. There was a bit of a talk about the achievements and how they're going for a range of achievements. Not all of them are about making encounters even more difficult, but some of them are related to the lore and so on. But here's the thing that really made me freak out. Naturally, it came from the section about the story. And there's a goddamn screenshot here. Look at this thing. There's a screenshot of apparently some new tool set that was developed. Remember all these, this talk we've heard from the raid designers about how dialogue interactions are being improved within the raid. Different characters can quip among one another. We didn't see too much of it in Wing 2, but Wing 3 does it really, really well. Just listen to this.
I can cast spells when absolutely needed, but for the most part, you'll need to keep me alive. You think you can do that?
Any volunteers for escort duty? We'll figure it out as we go.
Okay, and this is a screenshot of that toolset, I guess, in use that dynamically allocates all this different dialogue across the 10 mercenaries in your squad. Oh, and it just makes my heart go. I wish I could design quests and things like that for this game. Actually write some dialogue, implement this stuff. It reminds me so much of the Elder Scrolls construction kit, and I really hope that the devs are getting good use out of this thing, because it looks freaking awesome. So that's about it, guys. There is still an awful lot to talk about. I promise I will have a video about the general details of what's going on with the patch, but I really wanted to throw this information at you all. Keep everybody in the loop. That's what we're all here for, right? And hopefully Living Wild Season 3 and more content will come very soon. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got anything to talk about with regard to what we said today, I'd love to hear it down below. But until next time, guys, have a great evening. A new Let's Play is coming very, very soon, so keep your eye out for that. And until then, have a good one, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Skins, the Dominator weapon skin set. This is kind of funny. I guess there are some people out there who a new raid wing comes out and they're going to see that there's all these really cool new weapons and gear and skins in the raid wing, but at the same time they